Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help. And King of Floors, your vinyl, laminate, and engineered flooring superstore.
All of our guests today, just ahead of Elliotte Friedman. And a reminder, Kevin Epp will join us in about 15, 20 minutes or so as well. All of our guests today is sponsored by Passant Motors. It's the Canada Day sale at Passant all month long. Great promos, lots of savings, and great deals. Check them out online at PassantMotors.com and follow them on Twitter at Passant Motors. Just before Elliot, Delaney's OK Tire and Langley Inbox, Dan from Nanaimo, wow, no matter what Jim Benning does, you guys will have a problem with it. He could have gotten OEL for a bag of pucks and a hamburger, and you would complain it wasn't a cheeseburger, and Dan goes on. But keep in mind, when Rick or I talk about that, going back to 2014 with the Benning era, it's not just Jim Benning that we're criticizing. It's everybody, including, some people upstairs.
Upstairs, at the very, very, very top.
Okay. Let's bring in Elliotte from Hockey Night in Canada, Sportsnet, and the 31 Thoughts podcast. Hey, Elliotte, how are you, sir?
I'm good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Very well. It's a busy time in Vancouver. Hey, he unloads three bad contracts, acquires a top 4 D-man, top 6 forward, takes a step in setting Jake Virtanen free. How would you describe Jim Benning's draft day weekend, Elliotte?
I would call it very active, I think is the phrase I would use. One of the things I've kind of noticed out there, Don, and Vancouver wasn't the only team. I think now that the cap is flattening, and it's going to stay pretty flat for the next 3 or 4 seasons, GMs have to do things that they probably wouldn't have done before. Mm-hmm. If you really want to change the chemistry or makeup of your team, you have to try something that's a lot more bold and a lot out of your comfort zone. And to be honest, if the cap had grown without the pandemic as much as we thought it was going to go the last couple of years, I don't think you see Vancouver make this deal. But this is where life is for all of us. And, what it said to me, as I said yesterday, is that it clearly says to me that if the Canucks don't win next year, there are going to be consequences.
Elliotte, Shane Gostisbehere, Louis Eriksson, Jay Beagle, Antoine Roussel. Heck, I can remember when Arizona was hanging on to Chris Pronger's contract.
Yes.
Pavel Datsyuk.
Yeah, Pavel Datsyuk. Help me out here. And I know a lot of people know the answer to this question. A lot of people don't. But the Coyotes have that history of taking on bad contracts. How does that make sense?
Well, I think the thing is, too, is that there's always going to be teams that do stuff like this. Like in all sports, if you look at basketball right now, Oklahoma City, like they're basically the team that does all that. They take, they trade guys and they get 1,000 draft picks and they try to make it work that way. Arizona did that for a long time. They took a run at it the last few years. They went out and they actually added players. They had a lot of veteran defensemen. They paid out some big contracts. They took a run at Taylor Hall. Didn't work. So, now they're blowing it up and starting it again. The fact that they got punished a couple of draft picks obviously didn't help either. They, the way they were going wasn't going to work. They have to do something else. There's a lot of people in the NHL who, try to stay in quote what Brian Burke's dreaded middle. Mm-hmm. What Buffalo and Arizona are doing, Don, is they're simply saying it didn't work. We're starting all over again. We're going to go for Shane Wright. We're going to go for Connor Bedard. And we're going to see where that takes us. And I don't have as much of a problem with Arizona doing it now because they at least went for it the last couple of years. They broke up that cycle of just taking on contracts.
Mm-hmm. Elliotte, let's do some house cleaning here. Give us updates on what you know about Holtby and Schmidt. Let's start with that.
Well, the Holtby thing is, I'm still curious to see. I'm really curious to see what Vancouver's going to do here. They're having a ton of trouble trading him because people are saying if you want us to take Holtby now, you have to give us something, and Vancouver doesn't want to do that. They did that to move those other 3 deals. I don't think they want to do it again. I do think, Rick, there is interest in Holtby out there. I think there are teams who are very interested in Holtby. I think Colorado, if they don't get their goaltending situation, is one. I think Toronto, which is looking for a partner for Jack Campbell, is another. And I wouldn't be surprised if teams like Philadelphia and Buffalo were interested in him too. I think there's a lot of interest in him out there, but there is not a lot of interest in him at both the AAV number and the salary number he is due next year.
Yeah.
So what Vancouver could do is they could buy him out tomorrow. There still is one more day to buy people out. Or because you have some arbitration cases, you can buy him out after that. I'll tell you something. If you do that, it's going to make it very difficult. In some cases, it could make it very difficult for Holtby to find a good spot next year, because I don't know how many teams are going to be willing to say, you know what, we're going to wait until after the ARB cases to make sure we have our goaltending situation sorted out. So I'm sure the player's preference is to, if he's going to be bought out, is to do it tomorrow, because after that, the leverage really isn't with you. It's with the teams.
Schmidt, by the way, Buffalo,
Schmidt, yeah.
Elliotte, Buffalo does have interest in Holtby, but he's on his 5-team no trade list. Schmidt,
well, look at the D. Jones is done. Hamilton is not done yet. Suter, I think we're going to know. Apparently, the indication is the league might not want Suter to sign before Wednesday, although I guess he could make his decision at any time. I think once Martinez is off the board. I think those were 4 guys we were kind of waiting for. So we know now Jones, Chicago, Martinez, Vegas, Suter, Dallas or Florida, and we'll see where Hamilton ends up. I'm thinking Carolina or New Jersey. I think once those are all done, I think that's when we'll have a better idea of what Schmidt's future is. I think he has to wait and see where some of these other guys go first.
Okay, last one for me before back to Donnie. Pettersson Hughes deals. What are you hearing?
Like I said, I mean, here was a funny story someone said to me. I think you guys, I saw your tweet today. I think you guys are working to get Garland signed.
Yeah.
Someone said to me that if you wanted to offer sheet Vancouver and cause trouble, the best one to do is probably Garland.
Right.
Because you can get him at a lower number.
Big time. That
still, costs you something in terms of draft picks, but it's still a problem for Vancouver. Now, I'm assuming that they'll get an extension done with Garland. Yeah. It would be really something to see a guy get traded there and then sign an offer sheet somewhere else.
Elliotte, it would be
But I think he's going to sign. I think it's going to get done. The suit of the Pettersson one, I mean, we'll see. You know how I felt about it. I've been thinking Barzell the whole time. The Hughes one, I just keep hearing different things. I hear long-term is out. Then I heard a 6-year deal could potentially be back on the table. Then I heard that was out, and then I heard short-term deal. I don't know. I'm hearing so many things on that. My head is spinning. But last week somebody was telling me they thought there might be a 6-year deal on the table. I don't know how that would work. We'll see.
Okay.
Jake Virtanen, Elliotte, do you think there'll be interest in Jake Virtanen probably at a discount around the rest of the NHL?
I just think what's going to happen there is people are going to wait for clarity on what happens legally.
Yes.
I think that's what we're looking at in that situation.
Jack Eichel, who are his most aggressive suitors?
I think Minnesota absolutely is. That is one team. I think Calgary's been in and out. I think Anaheim's been in and out. I think the Rangers have had interest, but they don't seem to have a match. I think Montreal had interest, but I heard they kind of lowballed a bit. I don't think their offer was there. One thing I was told, I know there's been a report out there that ownership says they want him in the Western Conference. I've heard that's actually not true. I've heard that it's best deal. Best deal available. And they've got a high bar, and they don't want to go below it.
And Elliotte, Alex Ovechkin, we're hearing 3 years, 10 per. Does that make sense? in Washington?
Well, I kind of guessed that, so
Yeah.
I'm going to stay with that until I'm
Okay.
proven wrong.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Elliotte, do you see the mugshot we got of you on TV?
No, I can't. I don't get.
Check.
I don't get Vancouver cable in my house
Okay.
here in Toronto.
Anyways,
So
it's
I can't see it.
it's a young Elliotte Friedman. You look 21. Donnie, would you say 21 to 25?
I got news for you. Elliott's younger than both of us.
I wouldn't go that far.
It is always a young Elliotte Friedman.
We
can't wait to see this when I see the pictures on Twitter.
We got submissions in our Delaney's OK Tired Langley box. Get a new picture of Friedman. That's not what Friedman looks like today. So
He looks better now. Thanks, Elliotte. And by the way, thanks for joining us these last 4 months. It's been just so it means so much for us starting off this new show. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you
My
in September.
pleasure, guys. Have a great August.
You bet.